Auburn in Arizona. We got a showdown in Tucson.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes. Welcome on into this special crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Wildcats. I'm Zac Blackerby of Locked On Auburn, Darrell Dapprich of Locked On Auburn, Leif Thulin of Locked On Wildcats. And of course, we are previewing Auburn and Arizona. Massive, massive game. And I think there's two very different storylines about these two teams that have already been battle tested and played some elite opponents this season. Leif, Arizona, undefeated. You were pretty vocal throughout the weeks leading into the season saying like, hey, national media, you guys are too low on Arizona. And based on what we've seen so far, it sounds like you nailed that prediction.
Yeah, I felt like you got a recipe that's pretty reproducible, right? Tommy Lloyd in 4 years at Arizona has been no worse than 13th in a Ken Palm finish, and all 4 of those years top 10 offensively. So you're going to be good on offense, and the question was, how well can you dominate the glass? How well can you defend? Because those are the years that he's been better. He's been top 10 in those metrics. The years he's been worse, which again, he's finished top 13 in Ken Palm all 4 years and won 78% of games in his 4 years. So it's not crazy to say they'll be good. I thought they'd be really good because they brought back a ton and brought in 2 5-stars along with 2 other highly touted freshmen, and their pieces made sense to me. And so far, so good. Who knows down the road, but I think right now they're at a 1 seed in plain sight. I said that before the season that I thought they'd be a top 2 seed guaranteed, and I'd be pretty shocked if they are not by the end of the season, barring disastrous injury.
Yeah, Darrell, I think there are differing opinions on where Auburn is as a basketball team right now. Both battle tested, like we said, Arizona playing Florida, UCLA, UConn, Auburn, close game against Houston, not a close game against Michigan, really handled St. John's in the second half earlier this week. Where are you? Where should Auburn fans and where should Arizona fans who maybe don't know as much about Auburn, like what's the biggest difference here between these teams?
It's really a total antithesis of what Leif just said. Auburn flipped its roster, doesn't have a lot of returning guys coming back. New coach as opposed to a veteran like Tommy Lloyd, who's kind of, cut his teeth in this roster. Auburn bases a lot of what they like to do on the defensive end, and people like to look at the offensive metrics and say, can they get it done offensively, right? And this year it's been a little bit different. Auburn scored a lot in the 90s, has struggled some defensively, not the mark of an Auburn basketball team, is why it tells me this has a potential of a game from a scoring standpoint to look like an 80s NBA game, really. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this game got into the 90s. And it's not that Arizona can't defend, because I've watched some of their games. I just think from a matchup standpoint and how they like to play, I don't see Auburn being able to really shut them down completely. But I do see a pathway or a format where Auburn would have to outscore them and get back into the 90s. This has a potential to be high scoring and a big-time shootout.
If it is high scoring, guys, I mean, my gut says that benefits Arizona. What do you guys think on that? Leif, you go first.
Well, I think Arizona in a high-scoring game is perfectly at home. What I've been impressed with for them is their ability to win the low-scoring one. So I agree that they're they're actually on their home court, but it almost feels like a home court to play a high-scoring game, whereas they've played UConn, UCLA, who've played so treacherously slow. It almost feels more comfortable. The thing about Auburn, I think the more possessions you get more threes, and Arizona doesn't take many. But if Arizona is taking 50 shots in a high-paced game from 5 feet away, they're going to make a lot of them, and Auburn would have to shoot so well to stay in a high-scoring game. So I'm with you on that, Zach.
Yeah, I think the only way you counter that, Leif, is Auburn will have trouble defending around the rim a little bit. And if Arizona gets a lot of 5-footers and shoots a ton of those, it's going to be hard. If Auburn's hitting the 3 early, when you talk about, possessions and efficiency rate per possession, and getting it into the 90s, then that's where it's going to play into Auburn's hands. Because in the past, I really felt comfortable with Auburn winning low-scoring games. I think you would agree with this, Zach. I don't this year. I think it's a little bit different scenario, and a lot of that's based upon the interior post defense. The rim protectors aren't there where they've been in years past.
Yeah, the defense around the basket for Auburn. Leif, you're talking about shooting a lot of shots from 5 feet. Like, that's how I would attack Auburn if I was Arizona. I'm going to the basket over and over and over again.
Well, I got a stat for you. Arizona shoots the 358th most three-pointers per attempted field goal. So they really do not shoot many threes. And when they shoot those threes, they're shooting about 37%. But in games against the marquee opponents, the UCLA, the UConn, the Florida, they've made 3.3 threes per game. So basically under 10 points per game have come from threes in games they've beaten the best of the best that they've played. That many people would say Arizona has the best resume in basketball. So they have scored 93 points against Florida, making 2 threes. So they basically, their recipe is shoot a ton of 5-footers and shoot a good percentage of those. Even if they shoot badly from 5 feet, they're still going to shoot around 50% because they get easy shots. And so, frankly, I said on my show, so the Everydayers to the Locked On Wildcats are going to say, oh, okay, like you're crazy because now you're walking back. I thought when I watched Auburn the first time and I watched them play Bethune-Cookman, and then I watched them again against Houston, I thought there was a big improvement, but I thought Arizona was going to beat Auburn by 20. And I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. I think it's probably not 20. I think I may have been a little overzealous there, but I think they're going to get too many shots that they want to get against an inferior front court. Like, no offense to Keyshawn Murphy. I just don't think he can guard Mo Krivos. And I don't know if he's guarding Koa P.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up to Darrell. Like, okay, the pressure personnel-wise, Keyshawn Murphy, and then, for the Arizona folks who don't know, Auburn's got, a 7-footer that we're begging to see more of, Emeka Oporum, and it's kind of been hit or miss on when he's gotten minutes. I wonder if we see more of Oporum against Arizona, Darrell.
The matchup with Grivas would be a nightmare, I think, from a physicality standpoint. So I would.
Couldn't you say that with anybody on Auburn?
Yeah, exactly. I think for Auburn fans to put in perspective for what Leif just said and to give them a path. Remember how Auburn, even a team that went to the Final Four, struggled with Florida's front line and their physicality. Florida's got some good bigs. For Arizona to only hit 2 threes in that game and get a lot of points. Now, there's 2 ways. Some of that is misleading, and because I watched a lot of that game. Points in the paint are points in the paint. You can get it by posting up, or you can get it by slashing and going to the basket. Arizona can do both. I mean, they can. Koa's a player, and those guys can go to but they're not that traditional. The 5-footers look different. A lot of different ways you can get to 5-footers. So for Auburn, I think Murphy and Jovic is going to have to. Jovic's going to have to be. He's 6'8", 6'9", but he's going to have to play bigger.
Yeah.
He's going to have to negate some of this size down low. Pettiford can be the difference in this game and keeping it to where it's not where Auburn has a chance to win this game. I saw what Michigan did to Auburn. I know what Arizona has. I'd be shocked if Arizona blew Auburn out, even at McKale Center, which is like a Rupp or Arkansas, Bud Walton. It's very, very tough to win there. But I think the depth and some of the athleticism from Auburn's guards and their 3s and their 4s, if they're hitting the three, this can be a very good basketball game. If they're not, and they're counting on post baskets, then it could get ugly.
Yeah, I want to talk about the scorers in this game and how that matchup could look. But that's going to be important. That's going to be important regardless if it's low scoring or higher scoring. We tackle that next right here on this crossover edition of Locked On Auburn and Locked On Wildcats. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And look, NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, then suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. If you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets, college basketball bets, NBA, doesn't matter what it is, all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn and Locked On Wildcats your first listen every single day. Of course, Auburn and Arizona squaring off in Tucson on Saturday. The scorers here, I mean, Darrell, from the Auburn side of it, we saw Tahaad Pettiford erupt in the second half against St. John's, which is encouraging. And then Keyshawn Hall has been, when healthy, even not really when he's 100%, he's been one of the better scorers in the SEC so far this year. Darrell, what are you expecting from those guys? And then Leif, what are you expecting from Arizona to slow those guys down? Darrell, start with what you're expecting on the Auburn side of it.
So all year I've been saying the biggest thing that Auburn needs to get to that next level is similar to what Arizona has with 6 guys in double figures. Auburn has Pettiford and Hall that you can count on going off. I mean, 25, 26. What Auburn needs to have to win this game is secondary scoring. Who's going to emerge besides Hall and Pettiford? Is it Elijah Freeman? Is Overton finally going to get going? You know, is Murphy, who has started to show a little bit of life, hit a big 3 against St. John's? Auburn, Jovic, who got double digits his last 2 times out. We know what we're going to get with Hall and Pettiford, but you better get somebody else to emerge in this basketball game to give you some secondary scoring from a depth standpoint, because I have a suspicion that Arizona, and this is what I'm going to ask Leif later, who their best on-ball defender is from the guard position, because that's who will go at Pettiford, and then their best 3 or 4 wing defender will go at Hall. So Auburn's going to have to counter that and have some secondary scoring.
Well, the first thing Arizona does really well is they alter the diet of shots that teams want to take. So a lot of the teams they've played, we talked about Florida. Florida is a very inside-out oriented team. Their team has shot poorly from 3, but they were forced to shoot a ton of 3s because Mo Krivas changes everything. So if I were Auburn, I would try to scheme up things that get him away from the basket. But he's going to play deep drop coverage and make the shots from 2 be low percentage 2s. They make you play the anti-analytics game, where you have to beat them, you got to shoot mid-range jump shots. And so Tahaad Pettiford, I'll answer that question early. Jaden Bradley is one of the best defensive guards, and he was at Alabama. He's been at Arizona for 3 years. He's been the closer for Arizona offensively, which is what everyone talks about. But honestly, what I've been more impressed with is just him picking and choosing his spots, because in years past, he's been a defensive guard. He's got some of the best hands in the game defensively. So he'll be on Tahaad Pettiford. What I've been impressed with is Arizona does not need Jaden Bradley to score a lot of points. They need him to pick and choose his spots offensively. So I expect him to have a defensive assignment, and that'll be the orientation of the game for him for the most part until it gets going. If it gets tight, then it's Jaden Bradley time. As for Keyshawn Hall, I really like him. I think he's very versatile. This is one thing that I am concerned for Arizona is Keyshawn Hall can play multiple positions and attack from different areas of the floor. The best defender to guard him on Arizona's roster is possibly going to be out, and that's Ivan Karchenkov. Oh. And he emerged against Florida. He had 12 points and 10 rebounds in his first game. He's been a spotty shooter since, but when he guarded Alex Caravan, who's a very different player than Keyshawn Hall. Hall's a way better scorer. Caravan's a very good spacer. He took UConn out of their actions because he was able to be fleet of foot enough to run around all those screens, but sturdy enough to guard post-ups. So I think he would have been the guy who drew the assignment. He sprained his ankle pretty badly in the last outing. Rumor is, there's possibility he's going to play. I am skeptical that he plays in that game. And I would be more likely to believe he plays 2 weeks from the injury against Alabama. The other point I want to make is Arizona in the years past have been teetering on, okay, they're top 10 offensively, they're 30th defensively. The reason this team I'm so bullish on is they're enormous. They follow the recipe Duke had last year. They follow the recipe Auburn had last year, where they employed 2 bigs at numerous times. And so you can score offensively, you get a ton of possessions, both rebounding, but defensively, they just make things hard because they can switch, they can play drop coverage, they can hedge, they do a ton of different things, and their positional size is massive. They're 6'7" as the entire roster, and their starting lineup averages at 6'9". And so they're a massive, 6'8.5" if you want specifics. But this team is huge, and I kind of think they'll overwhelm physically most teams in the country, and I don't think Auburn's too different. That said, the game against Houston and Michigan are good primers to be ready for Arizona's physicality and length.
Yeah. Darrell and I talked about, some of the other tough games coming up on Auburn's schedule before they get into SEC play. And obviously the biggest 2 are Arizona and Purdue. And I mean, Purdue's another team that's it's like the physicality is going to be an issue. And so I'm curious to see how much of it is personnel, how much of it's execution, how much Stephen Pearl can do from a scheme standpoint, because size is going to be a problem, especially around the basket for Auburn. And so I'm excited to see what Stephen Pearl does to attack Arizona on both sides of the court, because I think this is going to be a recipe of what we might see a lot for the rest of the season.
Well, I think Leif cracked the code, and it's been something that you make fun of me, Zach, for the last couple of years. When I heard the word mid-range jumpers, I mean, people don't want to shoot it in this day and age. They want to dunk or they want to shoot threes. And if
Tahaad will shoot it.
Tahaad will shoot it, and Hall will shoot it, and Hall will slash. I think there's an interesting storyline that is really kind of – Auburn's staff knows Jaden Bradley real well. He's never played against anybody on this current Auburn team, but Stephen Pearl and Burgermeister know him really, really well from that Brandon Miller team, who a lot of people feel like Jaden Bradley was very much a key piece of that. The second aspect of that is I assume, Leif, that Keyshawn Hall being in the Big 12 last year, did he not play against Arizona?
Yeah, he's a known commodity, led the conference in scoring. So I think there is a scout. I'd be pretty confident that Karchenkov would guard him if healthy. If not, I think you're going to see some Koa Pete on him, but you don't want to get him in foul trouble. And then you'll see a little bit of Del Orso or maybe an Awaka just try to kind of rough him up, as opposed to someone smaller where Hall can get into that back down game. He does pretty well.
Darrell, what are you expecting for Auburn defensively on Saturday against Arizona?
No 1-3-1. I'll tell you
I
that
hope not.
Because Pete and Krivos will get lost in that. I would say probably a 2-3. And the fact that Arizona doesn't like to shoot a lot of threes, it won't need to be a matchup. I think if you go man, you could get killed on the boards from a size standpoint. But a 2-3, maybe the one that you kind of drop back into that a little bit. But I just don't think that Auburn has that Dylan Cardwell that's the rim protector to play a 1-3-1 right now. So I think what you want to do is keep Arizona to trying to extend them and dare them in a 2-3 to shoot the basketball, to shoot the three. And then you better rebound because they go to the boards very aggressively. I know Auburn likes to play a lot of man. One of the things that Auburn hasn't done this year that I would like to see them do Saturday is they're not pressing. They're doing this token press where they press the inbounds and then they back off instead of staying in the press. I know Bradley's a good ball handler. Del Orso, I think the Burris kid, can handle the ball. But I would like to see some chaos and disruption and see if they could go full court press more than that token press where they back off.
I think you have a very interesting point about the zone, because I think teams will zone Arizona frequently because of their ineptitude or unwillingness to shoot the ball. They shoot 37%, but there's really no snipers on the floor. Like Anthony Del Orso can really shoot it, and that's it. Because Dwayne Aristode has padded his numbers. He hit 6 in a bye game. Burris has hit a few in bye games, but hasn't played well in big games. But he is getting better. That is one thing I'll tell my Wildcats listeners. When he starts playing better and Krivos being more aggressive, like that's what elevates the ceiling for Arizona. But the thing is, out of a zone, if you're forcing threes, that's a rebounding contest. And Arizona gets 41% of their misses. 41. Like, that is an enormous number. And it's not going to stay against the biggest teams. But Auburn allows 13.3 offensive boards per game. So I'd be pretty shocked if Auburn can stay zone, just because I don't think you can rebound out of it. And no teams really can. Like 2-3 zones are notoriously difficult to rebound out of because you can't check out to different bodies. So Arizona crashes with Tobe Awaka, who's got the #1 offensive rebounding rate in the nation, and Mo Krivos is 7-2. And then Koa Pete's an absolute monster athletically. So if there is the zone, I think Arizona should attack by playing Koa Pete in the high post and spraying the ball out. And I still think it's the right thing for Auburn, because if Arizona doesn't shoot it well, then you got a chance. Man-to-man, I don't see much of a chance against the high-low that Arizona employs.
Yeah.
That zone philosophy, it's funny you should say that, because that Zach and I talked about that last week. There is that narrative that it's tough to rebound out of a zone, but there's also, Lute Olson philosophically rebounded and went to the zone if he's playing a team that's bigger, faster, stronger than him with man. So I get the zone, it's harder finding that body, but a lot of times in the zone you can rebound to the space, to the area, to that particular radius around you, and you kind of know how active Arizona's going to be on the offensive glass. So if you try to man up, you're going to get beat to the spot without even going over the back because of size, strength, and speed.
Right.
So I think you have to defend that area is why I would think. I know traditionally the zone's not the best thing, but I've seen it where it's effective if you're undersized from a post standpoint.
So who wins this game? We take our stab at our predictions in just a moment, right here on this crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Wildcats. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap. It's a way to share memories. And look, Aura isn't your average picture frame, right? You can preload the frame with photos before gifting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. Great for family. Aura frame. We have an Aura frame, and it's fun just to kind of upload pictures. Some of them that, you know, my kids take the pictures and they upload and they see it on the frame later that day and they get excited. So a lot of fun stuff you can do with it. Great gift this Christmas season. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURA frames, auraframes.com. Use promo code COLLEGE. The deal is exclusive to our listeners, and the frames will sell out fast, so get on it. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn and Locked on Wildcats your first listen every single day. Who wins on Saturday? I'll go first, guys. I've got Arizona winning this game 88-82. I think Auburn hangs in there, and then over the course of maybe the last 8 minutes of the game, I think Arizona kind of gets a sizable lead that Auburn's not going to be able to overcome late. I think the physicality over the course of 40 minutes, I have a hard time seeing Auburn do that. Obviously, I hope that they do, but I think that's what's going to come down to it.
Yeah, I'll go next. Zach will tease me and make these jokes about my Arizona background, but I will say I've been in that arena. I know how hard it is to win basketball games there when Arizona just has good teams. I agree with Leif. I think that this game that Auburn scheduled was incredible, that, aggressively to schedule this and to go to Tucson to play it. You combine the fact that it's very hard to win there, and this is a really, really good Arizona team. And I just think it's going to be too much. Not a good matchup for Auburn either. So right. I'm going to go 86-76 Arizona.
Oh. What about you, Leif?
That's very close to the number I'd written down. I wrote down 88-76 Arizona. And my rationale was really Auburn would have to shoot the ball so well to score above 85 points. And I think that's what they need in a bad shooting day from Arizona, because Arizona, in 4 years with Tommy Lloyd, I think this is their best team. In 4 years with Tommy Lloyd, they've been north of 80 points per game in all of those. And this is a team that's playing pretty quickly and is getting 41% of their misses. So essentially, this is what Auburn did really well last year. You guys, I'm sure, spoke about it plenty, is they got more possessions than anyone else. So even when you do miss, you get a second chance. And when you get second chances, you go to the free throw line, you get spray out threes, things like that. Arizona has done what Auburn did, what Florida did, what Houston did, what Duke did last year, and said, we're going to be enormous. We're going to force turnovers on one end of the floor. And if we can get out and run, that's an easy bucket. And if we miss, we just got it on the backboard and we got behemoths on the interior to get boards. So I think it would just take such a good shooting performance from Auburn against what is a top 10 defense in Arizona. I think they'd have to score nearly 90 points to win. So even if Arizona doesn't hit 88, I think they win by 10 or so. So I have 88-76. Based largely on, I just think they get more chances to score based on rebounding.
That's funny because Leafs, like reading my mind, one of the keys that I had was multiple possessions. Limiting Arizona's multiple possessions and Auburn trying to get some multiple possessions like they got last year. And the two ways you get multiple possessions, offensive rebounds or causing turnovers. And I think both of those fall in the strength category, unfortunately, for Arizona. They don't turn it over a lot, and they get a lot of offensive rebounds. So that was a key. If Auburn doesn't come and shoot lights out, if they do, then kind of all bets are off because that changes the dynamics of the game.
Yeah, and look, any game like this, Tahaad Pettiford is a factor. For whatever reason, if he shoots better outside of Neville than he does at home, whether it's neutral site or these big road games, this is when Tahaad Pettiford shows up. We saw him in the final game in Vegas last week against St. John's, where he erupted for 27. I would not be shocked if Tahaad Pettiford had a few runs in this game where it kept Auburn in it. I'm almost banking on it.
And that's the thing. I think you're going to need nearly 50 points from Tahaad and Keyshawn, because it's really hard to score on Arizona. If you look at their games they've played against the best teams they've played, Florida, Thomas Houck had a ton of points, but he had 13 free throws made. So that's anomalous, right? You're not going to get that too frequently. And then you go to Donovan Dent. He's been injured, but he was supposed to be an All-American. He was shut down. You look at UConn, solo ball ran off the line. He hit 11 points in the first half, ended with 14, I think. And all of those were contested, and they take you out of the first action, take you away from the easy threes, and make you shoot the mid-range jump shots and take away the rim. They ask you to go to the rim. They invite you to go to the rim, and Mo Krivas just looms large down there. And should Mo Krivas get in foul trouble, then Tobe Awaka, the best rebounder, comes in. So it's Arizona's got it in waves. I am a little concerned about how long Karchenkov's out, if he is out, but I don't think that in itself takes away Arizona's defensive prowess. The reason I'm so high in Arizona right now is their offense was a given going to be good. They're always going to be good. But their defense is, I think, one of the best in the country, and maybe even better than the metrics say, which have them 11th in the country.
Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Yeah, follow me on X, DAP6410, and then, of course, Locked on Auburn with you multiple times during the week. And then I'll be going live from McKale Center right after the basketball game Saturday night with you, Zach.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Leif Thulin, how can people check out everything Arizona Wildcats?
I'll subscribe to Locked on Wildcats, and I'll have the post games up right after the games. And this one's exciting. And they also play Alabama next week, so a lot of battles within the state. And my Twitter is on the screen. It's just my name, Leif Thulin. There's a lot of college basketball content there.
Yep, for sure. And the same place you find Locked on Wildcats, you can find Locked on Auburn. Like Darrell said, Darrell will be live from Tucson on that show, and of course, we'll be live after every single Auburn basketball game this year. For Darrell Dapprich and Leif Thulin, I'm Zac Blackerby. This has been a crossover edition of Locked on Auburn and Locked on Wildcats, presented by the Locked on Podcast Network.